Hey viewers, I've played modded Fallout 4 for another 30 hours and edited it down to a 35-minute video, which should feel like an hour-long video from anyone else. If you didn't watch the first part, you might want to do that before watching this one so you know what's going on. Anyways, I'm running out of TFC B-roll right now, so let's get the exciting story of Jill Mayhoff back on track. I left off the tail last time at Red Rocket, but I didn't stay there for very long. I just upgraded a few weapons, did some spring cleaning, and headed off to hunt myself an Institute Courser. On her trip, Jill got into a little raider trouble at College Square. She was shot a few times, but it was nothing she couldn't handle. The only problem was, after killing all the raiders, she was bleeding like a stuck pig, and no matter what healing items I used, I could not stop the bleeding. I used everything in my inventory, I tried cheating in more medical supplies, I tried refreshing MAME in the MCM, and that worked temporarily, but as soon as I re-enabled MAME, the bleeding returned. At that point, I was done with MAME and decided to uninstall it completely. Thankfully, it's a script-free mod, so I'm fairly certain it can be safely removed. I got rid of Condition Girl too, because without MAME, it's no longer necessary to see my limb health at all times. To replace MAME, I installed Hardcore Health Overhaul, and to compensate for the reduction in difficulty, I bumped up my damage taken multiplier using Game Configuration menu. With the game reset, most of my medical supplies were deleted, but I was too close to Green Tech Genetics to give up. I carried on to the building carefully. When I entered the building, I experienced a very common bug where it's impossible to enter third person. Thankfully, I knew the console command to fix it. I'm not sure what causes this bug, it just seems to crop up eventually whenever I play Fallout 4. That issue dealt with, Jill slowly crept up the building, taking some damage along the way, but without MAME, I quickly realized foods were now potent healing items again. I guess I could have installed the no food healing Robco patch, but I didn't think of that. Even so, fighting through the gunners wasn't an easy time, it took a lot of delicate twitch shooting. I nearly died while trying to deactivate a turret in one room because Fall Souls unpauses Fallout 4 while you're hacking terminals. Thankfully, I barely managed to escape that situation. The Courser himself was not a difficult opponent. One blast from my explosive shotgun removed his leg, and a quick spray from a Sten gun finished him off. I let the synth girl the Courser was hunting go free because I didn't know what else to do with her. I don't know what the Enclave's policy on synths is, they never said. Oh well, it's not as if this character ever pops up again anyways. I grabbed the chip from the Courser's brain and got out of there, job well done. At this point though, Jill was severely dehydrated, but luckily thanks to Commonwealth Reclamation Project, most of the water in the Commonwealth is no longer irradiated, at least if you drink it directly from the source. If you bottle it, it still turns into dirty water. I don't get the logic there, but that's how it is. I stopped by Hangman's Alley because I planned on building a teleporter there at some point due to its nice central position on the map. I was really getting ahead of myself because I didn't even have the materials to build a single teleporter at Red Rocket yet, let alone another one. After checking out the alley, I did a little shopping at Diamond City and got Piper back as my companion, and immediately regretted that decision. She went down so many times in combat. I think for the next hour, I spent more stimpaks on her than I did on myself. I'm not sure why I went to South Boston to do a Radiant quest to pick up a combat shotgun I never ended up using, but that's what I did next. My textures started getting murky again because I was testing these settings of long loading times fix. My experimentation paid off. I found out if you set quick load to false in the ini, textures will always load in full resolution as they should, but you still get the benefit of reduced loading times. Of course, while recording this footage, I hadn't figured that out yet, so you'll see blurry textures for the next few minutes, unfortunately. Anyways, I returned to Hangman's Alley to hook up a water purifier there, and then tried to go to Red Rocket to drop off my loot, but I got smoked by a raider on the way there. I had a micro heart attack when seeing the menu imply my saves were corrupt, but apparently they weren't corrupt because they loaded just fine. Next time around, I took no chances with those prick raiders and blew them to shreds with my explosive shotgun. After that, the trip back to Red Rocket went swimmingly. As is tradition, the place got attacked the moment Jill arrived there, this time by super mutants. I realized that there's at least one benefit to these attacks: it gives me many free weapons for scrapping purposes. I also realized I had the resources to build a teleporter, finally. I couldn't build enough generators to power it yet, but without a second teleporter to serve as a destination, that really didn't matter anyways. I was just happy to have made some progress. Me and Piper ran on down to the vertebrate facility and took a flight to the oil rig to get the next stage of the Enclave quest done. Unfortunately, it ended up being a boring quest. I had to slowly follow General Ward and Chief Engineer Myers as they explained the importance of this abandoned factory, and then I was tasked with flipping circuit breakers, resetting terminals, and repairing leaky pipes. Those first two were easy, but I spent about 20 minutes running around looking for those goddamn leaky pipes. It wasn't all bad. I did find tons of loot, including items made out of fiber optics and fiberglass, stuff I needed for building another teleporter. But holy shit, those pipes were hard to find. Most of them didn't have any visual indication of a leak. I just had to spam F everywhere until I found the right spot. Every leak required duct tape to plug, and I think some of the duct tape lying around may have been deleted by SKK's loot reduction mod. Luckily, I managed to scrounge up just enough to plug all the holes, but this ordeal took a lot longer than it needed to. The final two pipes were mercifully marked with a quest arrow. That really helped me out. It would have taken me another 20 minutes if the dev team hadn't done that kindness. With that painful quest complete, Jill was sent to talk to Dr. Kane to help out with the good doctor's FEV research. Kane told Jill to find 3 MacGuffins in an abandoned military facility. That sounded a hell of a lot better than fixing pipes, so Jill and Piper took a flight back to the Commonwealth. After a quick jog back to Red Rocket, I hooked up my teleporter to some generators. All I needed was one more teleporter and I'd be in business. Lacking a teleporter at the current moment though, Jill jogged all the way down to the old military facility Dr. Kane told her about and fought through the raiders inside. Useless Piper went down multiple times, but I brought plenty of stim packs. The metro-looking area gave way to a more industrial zone, occupied by the Brotherhood of Steel. At first I thought I might have to fight them, but actually they left peacefully with no convincing needed. Less amicable were the gunners that showed up afterwards and promptly got annihilated by my bullets. Long story short, I acquired the first 2 MacGuffins and then some Enclave backup arrived to help me fight super mutants that appeared out of nowhere. We killed a whole bunch of muties and even a behemoth, and grabbed the final MacGuffin, an FEV sample, off a table. It was very easy. Sadly, upon returning to the oil rig, Jill learned Dr. Kane's next task was not so easy. Kane gave Jill a stun baton and tasked her with recovering a Wastelander, a mutated creature, and a Vault Dweller. I knew that having companions would make the recovery more difficult since companions would likely indiscriminately attack the target I'm trying to subdue, so after being forced into an interview with Piper, I got rid of her by sending her off to Hangman's Alley. As it turned out, recovering a Wastelander wasn't too hard. They're pretty much everywhere. I knew finding a Vault Dweller would be a lot more troublesome though. In fact, I kind of ignored this quest for an hour or two and went off and did a bunch of stuff that was entirely pointless in hindsight. For example, I claimed Starlight Drive-In as a settlement location, but then never went there again. I wandered around Boston and got into some firefights, and I thought they were getting too easy, so I hid the stealth indicator using Fall UI. Removing the stealth indicator has huge consequences. It not only makes stealth more difficult, but it also makes it tougher to tell when you've killed the last enemy in the area. I really should have gone without the indicator from the beginning, but better late than never, I guess. I went to Pikmin's art gallery and showed the raiders there that Jill Mayhoff is the real greatest threat to raider kind, not this loser Dexter ripoff. As a reward for saving his worthless ass, Pikmin gave me his knife, which I replaced my old switchblade with. I used Pikmin's knife as my melee weapon for the rest of the game, but since I barely ever used melee, it wasn't a meaningful upgrade. After that pointless diversion, I moved on to another one. I went to Finch Farm and did the Out of the Fire quest. The Forged were some really tough bastards, but I would have handled them if I didn't stupidly kill myself with my own nuke mine outside their base. The second try went a lot better. I fought my way through the ironworks carefully and took absolutely no chances with the Slag boss fight, blowing him away as quickly as possible with my explosive shotgun. I also may have killed the Finch's son, who I was supposed to rescue, but whatever, I don't give a shit. On my way back to the Finch farm, I knocked out a fox with Dr. Kane's stun baton and magically sent it back to the oil rig. Now all that was left was finding a pure Vault Dweller. As I arrived at the farm to give the Finch family my insincere condolences for killing their son, Hangman's Alley came under attack. Normally I wouldn't care about settlement attacks, but this one I was concerned with because I'd left my junk for a future teleporter there. If I had been smart and thinking at the time, I could have avoided the attack by not sending Piper there, because settlements with zero population never get attacked. Logically, one would think settlements with no population would get attacked more, since literally anyone could waltz into them and take over, but there's no logic to Fallout 4's settlement attack system. Anyways, somehow I still hadn't learned my lesson about doing pointless shit, so I helped out Country Crossing by dealing with a nearby ghoul infestation. This was a 20-minute waste of ammunition that earned me nothing but another settlement for the Minutemen that I never revisited. After that, I figured it was time to save Hangman's Alley. On the way, I was jumped by 4 raiders. 3 of them I killed, but 1 got away after I ripped her arm off with my bar. I didn't bother going after her because I figured she wouldn't last long, unarmed. I stopped the attack on Hangman's Alley. It was only 4 gunners, not a problem. My problem was, in the middle of the settlement, I found Piper sleeping on the fucking job. She should have been helping me fight off those punks, but instead she was taking a nap on my bed that I built to save the game, not for her to sleep in. I was pissed. Jill was starting to think that Mayor McDumbfuck was right about Piper all along. So I woke her stupid ass up and told her to go to Sunshine Tidings instead because I never wanted Hangman's Alley to be under attack ever again. Dealing with that mess made me realize I'd been screwing around for too long and it was time to get serious about helping Dr. Kane with her FEV research. I figured the best place to grab a pure Vault Dweller would be Vault 81. Sadly, I didn't have 3 fusion cores on hand to get into the vault, so I had to make a long trip to Red Rocket. On the way, I did Preston Garvey proud by helping out another settlement with their super mutant problem. Really, I only killed 1 super mutant and then ran away, but apparently that's enough. Just kill the leader and it's quest complete. After reaching Red Rocket, I did some upgrading of my weapons, a little cooking, grabbed the fusion cores I needed, and headed back to those greedy slime balls inside Vault 81. As I entered the vault, I realized I didn't have an actual plan for procuring a specimen quietly, so I did things the loud way and stunned a security guard in plain sight of everyone, quickly spammed F on him to get him to the oil rig, and then I killed pretty much the entire population of Vault 81. I basically recreated Fallout 2's intro FMV. Sadly, that means Jill Mayhoff missed out on incredible quests like Here Kitty Kitty and short stories, but I think she'll recover from that loss. In any case, massacring and looting the vault provided her with more loot and as much experience as doing their quests. If I was a settlement person, I would have found these well-preserved objects to be a decorative godsend. As a more practical person, I still found them useful as crafting components. After my slaughter was complete, I returned to Hangman's Alley and was disappointed to find that I was just a few components short of building a second teleporter. So I trudged back to the oil rig on foot. On my way back, I fought another behemoth in the wild, which wasn't nearly as easy as doing it with the help of power armor-clad Enclave soldiers. Still, with an explosive shotgun, all things are possible. Upon her return to Dr. Kane, Jill didn't receive much of a reward, only another tasking, this time to secure an army depot. Well, that didn't sound bad at all, so I headed on back to Red Rocket. While there, I finally had the thought to upgrade my armor, and I'm glad I did because I earned myself an extra 10 points of carry weight. There were a few inconsequential firefights on the way to the army depot, but nothing really worth noting. I immediately regretted taking along a .38 revolver because the low damage output combined with the single action fire rate made it a terrible weapon. The only interesting thing that happened is Jill killed some Warmongers, another raider faction from Improved Hostile Factions. They had a note on them that read, "The strong thrive as the weak die," and Jill agreed with that very much. It's great to be thriving, and it's great to find a justification for killing your enemies on their corpses. The army depot was connected to the same world space as the satellite array that gave me so much difficulty in Part 1, and in the tunnel leading to it, I finally realized just how GPU intensive my shadow casting flashlight was, shaving 30 FPS off my frame rate in this little interior. That's probably why Bethesda didn't make the Pip-Boy cast shadows in vanilla, it's just too damn expensive. But anyways, I met up with General Ward and a detachment of Enclave soldiers and was briefed about the army depot being guarded by mercenaries of unknown origin. I only had to kill one of these Fury Company bastards before immediately knowing their origin because they all have synth components on them. Obviously, the Institute was involved somehow. The Fury Company thankfully wasn't much of a challenge, and we soon took over the entire army depot and entered its HQ. We were greeted by a synth copy of General Ward's daughter, Vanessa. He was understandably very confused. Of course, because the Institute loves teleportation, she managed to get away. General Ward was so conflicted about what he just saw, he took a vertibird and flew off to his old house to find more information. Another character who was about to become a lot more important, Colonel Whitehill, tasked me with locating his dumbass. Finding the General was a fairly easy task because it simply involved following a radio signal, much like the Courser killing mission in the main quest. At this point, I knew I had the resources to build a second teleporter, so I grabbed what I needed from Red Rocket and headed towards Hangman's Alley, hoping I'd find the source of the signal along the way. I dealt with a third super mutant behemoth, but found it difficult to loot since its head rolled an unreasonably long distance away after I blew it off with an explosive buckshot blast. I fought a few feral ghouls at Fiddler's Green Trailer Park and noticed that they could survive having their heads exploded thanks to hardcore health overhaul. I'm not sure how they can move around with their brains sliced off, but whatever. I encountered some synths on the Charles River Dam and noticed that they too could survive having their heads shot clean off. Well, it serves me right for using .38. As it turned out, Hangman's Alley was on the way to the location I needed to go to, so I plopped down a teleporter and turned it on. Finally, Jill Mayhoff had a quick way to get from Red Rocket to the center of the map. Feeling pretty good about that, I followed the vertibird signal to Fairline Hill Estates, where General Ward had pissed off to. I talked to him and he told me that he needed some documents from his safe. I spent the next 30 minutes looking around desperately for clues to get that damn safe open. I found all 4 clues, but it took me a while to realize that the code for the safe is General Ward's wedding date. The safe turned out to be looted anyways because Fury Company got there first, so I endured another firefight, surviving by hiding inside this metallic children's playpen. One of the Fury Company soldiers survived the shootout, and we decided to kidnap him to subject him to a little enhanced interrogation. The Enclave truly are the inheritors of the US government after all. Jill even had the opportunity to beat the guy up herself. What an honor. All the beatings didn't work, so we had to inject him with some orange shit. That, plus a little help from the tongs, made him sing like a canary. He told us he was from the Institute, no shit, and that Vanessa was created by the Institute to bypass the Enclave's biometric security. Wow, interesting. Because of her excellent service, General Ward promoted Jill to a captain and told her to get some new equipment from the quartermaster. The new equipment over-encumbered me and was worse than what I was already wearing, so I dropped it all like a sack of shit. I then had to do a shooting range minigame, which probably should have been at the beginning of the quest and not now. With an explosive shotgun, it's pretty easy to get a good score. After that pointless diversion, General Ward directed me to watch reinforcement vertibirds from other Enclave detachments arrive at the oil rig. With them came a new character, Senator Matthews, who I guess is from Enclave High Command, wherever that is. Everyone important in this story had a little meeting discussing the Institute threat, the Enclave's troubles with getting enough power, and finishing the FEV research. Boring. When do I get to kill more people? Apparently not yet, since Jill had to do a medical examination. Ugh. At least it was less awkward than the Brotherhood medical exam. No sexual history questions. I always hate it when doctors ask about that. And the awkwardness wasn't over because I was next told to go to the fucking railroad to have them decode the cursor chip I got earlier. Why can't we decode it here? Why? I hate those people. Well, you know the drill at this point. I left the oil rig, returned to Red Rocket, swapped out my weapons, did some upgrading, yada yada. The only interesting thing I found along the way was this Enclave private doing the A pose of dominance.
America's ours by right.
But anyhow, I also went to Sanctuary to speak with Preston Garvey for the final time. He was stuck on the roof of a house for some reason, but by jumping I was able to interact with him. He told me he thought it was time to retake the castle. Yeah, sorry Preston, I don't think I'll be doing that. I'll take the guys in power armor over the guys still using muskets any day. It's Enclave all the way from here on out. I got Dogmeat back as my companion because he's the only one that never flaked out on me, unlike Piper and Nick. Dogmeat and I went off to find the fail road, and this was my first opportunity to use my teleporter to cut the travel time short. In no time at all, we were back in Boston, admiring the beautiful architecture, meeting the locals, and visiting historic landmark sites like Old North Church. Jill tried to spend as little time with the fail road freaks as possible. As soon as they decoded the chip, she got her ass out of there and never interacted with them again. On my way back to Hangman's Alley, I realized I must have accidentally started the Automatron DLC, although I don't remember when, because I was attacked by the Mechanist's mechanized forces. Thankfully, I was wearing a piece of legendary slow time armor that really came in clutch. It completely saved my ass, buying me just enough time to kill the robots pursuing me and heal up. After slaying some more Raiders scum, I made it to Hangman's Alley, where I could recuperate and prepare for my second and final journey into the glowing sea. I had to go back to Virgil with the decoded Courser chip to get schematics that would allow me to access the Institute. This time around, I decided not to even bother bringing power armor since I had plenty of radiation medicine. I did bring Dogmeat with me though. On my way to the sea, I encountered the Mechanist followers once again, being dicks as always. They weren't so tough when they met explosive buckshot. In the glowing sea itself, I met with a Hellcat, bloodworms, feral ghouls, and deathclaws, but none of that stopped me from getting back to Virgil. He gave me the schematics I needed to get inside the Institute, and I promised to help turn him human again. I didn't make good on the promise, obviously. I left and never spoke to him again. My return trip was interrupted by a few nasty gargoyle enemies and a close encounter with death when a Brotherhood vertibird exploded right above my head, as they tend to do, but I made it back to the oil rig in one piece. The Enclave offered to let me build the Institute signal interceptor at the Army Depot, and I thought, why not? Sadly, I didn't have a sensor module lying around, so I followed the vanilla quest objective to acquire one at Hubris Comics. That trip took about 20 or 30 minutes and wasn't all that eventful. Feral ghouls are pretty weak enemies, even with the Feral Ghoul expansion pack. One thing I don't like about FGEP is how loud its new enemies are. They're constantly grunting and making all sorts of nasty sounds. I guess it lets you know you've still got some ghouls to clear out. I hit level 40, got the sensor module, and got my ass back to the army depot to build the signal interceptor. Annoyingly, Jill had to return to the oil rig and report to General Ward before being allowed to infiltrate the Institute on the Enclave's behalf, which took a few minutes. But eventually Jill made it inside the Institute, ready to find the son she had kind of forgotten about for the most part. After being bored by the most obvious plot twist in human history, Jill met with the leaders of the Institute. This would be the first and last time she would see most of them, at least in a friendly manner. On behalf of the Enclave, she discreetly stole some classified documents by picking them up and moving them into an empty room before pocketing them. Oldest trick in the book. Unfortunately, when I tried to leave the Institute, I was unable to do so because the world map was set to the Army Depot world space, not the Commonwealth world space you're allowed to fast travel to. Maybe I'm just a complete idiot that doesn't know some basic function of the Pip-Boy map, but I didn't find any way to get back to the Commonwealth besides COCing there. So, run failed, I cheated. Nah, I don't give a damn, it was a justified use of the console. Anyways, when Jill returned to the oil rig, General Ward entrusted her with the task of killing his fake synth daughter Vanessa. Jill could definitely sympathize with the General's situation because she had a fake synth son of her own she'd have to kill someday. Sadly, Vanessa's location was at Macra Fish Packing Plant on the far eastern side of the Commonwealth, so it was a long trek over there. Amazingly, during the trip, I encountered that raider whose arm I had shot off alive and well. I quickly corrected my earlier mistake by blowing her head off. I suppose without maim, dismembered enemies don't bleed to death. A legendary sentry bot caused me and Dogmeat some difficulty on our way to the plant, but it was nothing my laser rifle couldn't handle. Sentry bots always have great loot. The fusion cores were much appreciated. When I entered the plant, a synth courser told me to leave, and I told him where to shove it. Then I began shooting my way through the Fury Company soldiers holding the plant, hoping to find Vanessa. Well, I found her, and thanks to Scourge, she really wasn't much of a boss fight. Dealing with her was a piece of cake. When I left the plant, I encountered a few boom bugs, but they weren't very dangerous without maims, bleeding, and limb damage. In fact, the trip back to Red Rocket was relatively uneventful. I did go through Malden and fought some super mutants there, but the synths at the location were friendly despite how I handled Fury Company. The only real roadblock was the Mechanist's minions, who gave Jill quite a beating. A strong dose of Jet helped her survive and give them a few major malfunctions. Drugs are really good in Fallout 4, especially if you take the perk that makes you immune to addiction. You just have to make sure you're carrying around a lot of water, since you get dehydrated easily in survival mode. Jill told General Ward the good news that she killed his daughter, and he was so overjoyed that he gave her a plasma rifle as a reward. Maybe I should call him General Reward from now on because he's so damn generous. He even promoted Jill to Major. What a nice guy. Best of all, he gave her a set of XO1 power armor, pretty much the best of the best. He is a demanding boss though, because he also told Jill to attack the Brotherhood of Steel at the North Boston police station. At this point, the Enclave and Brotherhood became implacably hostile to each other, but that was fine by me because I had a fancy new set of power armor. It made me feel practically invincible fighting raiders on my way back to Red Rocket, and that's because I was invincible thanks to the Bastion mod. I found a never-ending pistol on one of their corpses, but I didn't use it much because the gun is very weak. 9mm isn't a great caliber, especially in the late game. Jill dropped her XO1 armor off at Red Rocket for later use and headed off to confront the Brotherhood of Steel. Major Jill gave the order to Captain Peterson to begin the assault, and the fight was on. It didn't take me long to realize things were not right here at the North Boston police station. There were trees clipping right through the Brotherhood fortifications. It seems like there's a soft conflict between Commonwealth Reclamation Project and America Rising 2 here. It didn't prevent me from clearing the police station of Brotherhood soldiers, but it was a little disconcerting seeing a vertibird touch down inside a tree that was clipping through the station's landing pad. On a possibly related note, this is where I had my first major bug with America Rising 2. Captain Peterson would not stop shooting at General Reward's vertibird, and the General himself refused to talk to me. I tried entering the police station and exiting to reset their AI, but that didn't work. What did work was leaving the area and coming back, which seemed to advance the quest stage. Peterson didn't stop shooting the vertibird for no reason, but at least I could talk to the General. Some godforsaken river lurks from Mutant Menagerie attacked the PD while the General was talking to me, so I had to restart the conversation more than once, and I skipped through it and missed some context, but Basically, my next mission was to get some aerosol vaporizer MacGuffin from Hallucinogen Industries to help spread Dr. Kane's FEV throughout the world to cleanse it of mutants. Real original, guys. It's not like you tried that plan twice already and got BTFO'd twice in a row. Orders are orders, so I went to Hallucinogen Industries and mowed my way through the crazed gunners in the building. I found the hypersonic vaporizer and got the fuck out of the building. Who was there to greet Major Jill but the esteemed Colonel Whitehill, who told her that she couldn't go along with the Enclave's plan to release FEV to the world.
Peddling this ideal of a world without mutation. If it were that easy, I'd be right there with him. The reality of this is, if Senator Matthews gets his way, the repercussions will be unfathomable. People like me, Enclave remnants who've had to scavenge the wastes for years, we've been exposed to enough radiation that the FEV would end us.
It's funny how Colonel Whitehill was completely on board with the whole global genocide idea until she realized it might affect her, too. Well, Jill mulled over the moral choice and decided to agree with Colonel Whitehill. Killing almost everybody in the world with FEV is going a bit too far. Jill realized that the world needed the more moderate genocidal approach Whitehill was offering. But for us to take over the Enclave, both General Reward and Senator Matthews needed to die, and obviously since Jill does everything, she was given the job of finding a way to assassinate the two of them without drawing any suspicion. Upon returning to the oil rig, I overheard that they were taking a vertibird flight somewhere, so I went to the vertibird and used my demolition expertise to sabotage their flight. A little frag grenade down the hatch did the job perfectly, and nobody was the wiser. I always knew flying was dangerous. Bye-bye, dummies. Jill left the scene of the crime, made her way to Colonel Whitehill, and informed her that the assassination went off without a hitch. We then plotted the next steps for the Enclave. Not content with making enemies of only the Brotherhood of Steel, the Colonel directed Major Jill to go to Mass Fusion to grab a beryllium agitator. The agitator was the secret ingredient to getting the oil rig's factory working at maximum capacity. Unfortunately, the Institute and Brotherhood of Steel also wanted the agitator, so we'd have to fight them for it. Jill made her way back to the police station full of messed up trees and had a short chat with Captain Peterson about the future of the Enclave before boarding the vertibird to Mass Fusion. I didn't even get off the roof before synths and Brotherhood soldiers annihilated me. After reloading my save, I figured I should maybe make use of that free suit of Exo-1 power armor I got earlier. I upgraded it a little bit, grabbed all the fusion cores I could, and made my way back to the police station for round 2. On the way, I noticed some of my weapons had the power armor footsteps bug, and just animation problems in general with power armor, but it was too late to swap them out for different ones now. I just dealt with it. The second assault on Mass Fusion went smoothly. I didn't even get a single scratch on me as I cleared the roof and moved down the elevator. It was dark as hell inside the building, and unfortunately the power armor flashlight I picked was not as bright as the non-power armor flashlight. There were a lot of synths in there, and Captain Peterson was not much help. He kept going down like a useless idiot. Grabbing the agitator was easy because my power armor blocked out all the radiation. Dealing with the security turrets and robots afterwards was a bit of a pain in the ass, and my power armor was damaged a little. I should have gone to repair it, but instead I returned to the oil rig and gave them the agitator. Following a gruesome showcase of the power of FEV from Dr. Kane, Jill heard news that the Brotherhood were performing a retaliatory attack on the Army Depot. This was a fun set piece, but very difficult. I'm glad I was wearing power armor because most of the Brotherhood troops were. I died once, but the second time around I made better use of drugs and was more careful to aim for the head. The fastest way to kill someone in power armor when using Bastion is to repeatedly shoot their head with a high damage weapon until their helmet breaks. Without a helmet, they're just as vulnerable as a regular human. Explosives like missile launchers and mines also make quick work of power armored enemies, but I didn't have any, and I had no 50 cal rifle either. The defense of the Army Depot was really difficult, probably the toughest fight in the entire run. It didn't help that I had been afflicted with weakness at some point. Most of my power armor pieces broke. I thought the onslaught would never end, but eventually it did. I was informed that I needed to take a vertibird quickly to a missile silo because the Brotherhood were going to launch an ICBM at the oil rig and kill everybody. I took a rain check on that mission because I knew it wasn't actually time sensitive and I needed to repair my armor. So I went back to Red Rocket for some repairs. Unfortunately, the Mechanists' Rust Devil dickheads were attacking the place. I killed them, repaired my armor, and then decided to go to Diamond City to restock on ammo and supplies. When I got there, I found the head of security doubled over in pain. Apparently, Mayor McDumbfuck let his synth identity slip and went crazy, taking his secretary hostage. Good thing Jill was there to save the day. While riding the elevator up to the mayor's office to confront him, I got distracted by the pipes on the wall not lining up with the pipe holes. How did that get past QA? Piper was smashing on the door, in fact clipping right through it, proving QA was indeed out to lunch when they made this quest. Anyhow, I shot the mayor's head clean off with a round of .308 and saved his secretary. Unfortunately for her, 1 second later Piper pulled out a minigun and riddled her with bullets for no reason at all. Okay. Job well done, I guess. Excitement over, I got my supplies and headed back to Red Rocket, where the attacks just kept coming. This time, the goddamn Brotherhood sent a vertibird to mess with me. I quickly blew it up and killed the soldiers it dropped off, with a little help from Preston Garvey and Marcy Long, who somehow were within aggro range. All that shit dealt with, I went back to the Army Depot and climbed onto a vertibird to stop the Brotherhood of Steel from wiping out the Enclave. I disabled the 2 anti-aircraft guns protecting the missile site and then participated in an all-out final assault on the missile silo. During the attack, a countdown began, so I took as many drugs as I could and cut my way through the Brotherhood soldiers. I even killed Proctor Ingram. Jill Mayhoff stopped the missiles from firing with less than half a minute of time on the clock. With the missile silo under control, the Enclave repurposed it to fire at the Pridwin, recreating the Hindenburg disaster. Oh, sorry, too soon. Anyways, that killed most of the Brotherhood's forces in the Commonwealth, including Elder Maxon. On my way back to Hangman's Alley after witnessing the annihilation of the Brotherhood of Steel, I fought a hermit crab, and honestly, it was tougher than the whole Brotherhood put together. It took a serious beating. I'm talking multiple mags of .308 and 25 explosive buckshot shells. If only any faction had thought to weaponize these creatures, they would rule the Commonwealth easily. Or maybe not, because I killed it eventually. Well, when I got back to safety, I prepared like crazy because I knew the Enclave's final target would be the Institute, and they'd be a difficult nut to crack. Sure enough, my next meeting with Colonel Whitehill was interrupted by a communique from the Institute saying they wanted to negotiate at North Boston Police Station. So I quickly made my way over there to meet with the Institute envoy, but since I was wearing power armor when I jumped down to meet the envoy, I accidentally damaged one of their synths and ruined the negotiations before they could even start. Whoopsie! Well, we killed all the synths in the area, returned to the oil rig, and drew up plans to blow up the Institute. Jill Mayhoff slept in her bed and woke up to absolute pandemonium. The Institute had launched an attack on the oil rig, teleporting in synths to wreak havoc. Somehow they'd managed to sabotage our anti-teleportation thingamajammers. Chief Engineer Myers gave Jill some fuses and said it was up to her to save the day, like always. Replacing all the fuses didn't take long, it was a 5-minute job, and so was killing the remaining synths. Easy as pie, really. With their attack force defeated, it was time for a counterattack. The cutscene explaining our counterattack plan was actually very detailed. A lot of work went into the camera and this 3D table here. Basically, the plan was to land in the Institute's courtyard, plant a bomb, jump down the bomb hole, storm the place, and blow up their reactor. The plan didn't go like it did on the holo table, unfortunately. First off, it was very difficult to do much damage with the minigun from above since the weather turned out to be foggy. It was hard to see. All the dense vegetation didn't help either. Second problem, after the exterior of the CIT was cleared and the bomb detonated, I guess because of Commonwealth Reclamation Project, there was no hole. The game was completely soft-locked. I had to use TCL to clip under the terrain to get access to the Institute. Aside from that little delay, our march through the Institute was a lot easier than I thought it would be. It was pretty much a slaughter fest. My power armor didn't even get damaged. Taking out the Brotherhood was way harder. It was a bit anticlimactic, but it was cathartic for Jill to kill all those Institute bastards, including her own son. She brought him into this world, and she took him out before his cancer could. I attached the fusion pulse charge to the Institute's reactor, and we prepared to leave. Obviously, Jill left the synthetic Sean behind. He wasn't her real son. We teleported to the roof of the mass fusion building, and since Jill Mayhoff does everything, she pressed the big red button and turned the Institute into a smoldering crater. The end. Okay, not really the end. Colonel Whitehill gave a speech back at the oil rig. That's the true ending. Dr. Kane refused to sit down during Colonel Whitehill's speech. Very disrespectful of her. When the speech was over, I realized, that's it. I made it to level 50 and played for 50 hours, but I was finally done. I could have slowed down and played more optimally, maybe done more side quests or some of the DLCs, but I took long enough already. I didn't want to make this a 3-parter. I hope you got some enjoyment out of this video. Toodles, everybody.